This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle, and paperback.
You too can become a sponsor by heading on over to patreon.com/stories, the true and the fictional. Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Stories, the True and the Fictional. If this is your first time joining us, I am YA Romantasy, and with me always is Ryan, who is always living the dream unless his mood has changed.
Always living the dream, always positive, always happy. And if it's the first time you're listening to us, why the hell are you starting now? Go back to all of our early embarrassing episodes, all 170 or odd of them, or however many we're up to. But no, our podcast, you can jump in and listen to any episode, but we'd love it if you listen to some of the back episodes as well.
Yeah, it'd be great. And remember, guys, to check out our sponsors, Rebecca Cassells and Martin Kearns. They got some great stuff out. Martin Kearns for the urban fantasy. It is amazing. Rebecca Cassells for the paranormal romance. Not my kind of cup of tea, but she did model a character off Henry Cavill, and that is my cup of tea. So there's something for everyone.
And there's werewolves, so there's not enough werewolf fantasy out there. It's all vampires and zombies and everything, but she delves into the werewolf romance. So definitely jump on and check out the Rising Dawn trilogy or series.
And one last plug for myself. My book is coming out June 1st. Ancora, check it out. I've heard some good stuff from my ARC readers. I was very nervous because no one was getting back to me. I'm like...
Oh, it takes a while. Not everyone can be like me and doesn't work and can just read books for a living. Yeah. But like a lot of people do work. But I must say, it is a very, 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 very good story. And so definitely... I'm glad that you're making it more than just one book. So
yes, it's a series now. But enough on me. Let's bring in our guest, Cyndi Brec. How are we going?
I am doing great. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Jamie. And by the way, congratulations, Jamie. That sounds like great that you've got a book coming out here shortly.
Yes, it's my third, and I never thought I'd ever write a series, and I was going to write this as a standalone. I knew the ending. I wanted it to be like morbid and dark, like The Road. And then I got to the end and I was like, this character wouldn't do what I wanted it to do. And it was just like, series.
It wants to live. It wants to live a little bit longer, right? No dystopian,
Yeah. So a lot of fun. But anyway, for those who don't know, who is Cyndi Brec?
Well, I am a fantasy romance author. And I like to tell people, especially when I'm working with kids and stuff like that I'm a legend sleuth because I love to search history. I love to twist legends and stuff. And I'm also a avid reader, and I like to turn from reading books into being a books nerd. And so I'm also been blessed to get some endorsements and so forth for the Therans Series from even Teen Magazine and stuff, NBC radio host, and Jonah Saul. I'm just very thankful, but I've written several books in this series, 3 books and for the main novels and quite a few short stories that are prequels that kind of fill in the spaces, but the entire series is completely done. And I'm a mom, I'm a dog lover, and I'd like to say I'm a great wife, but my husband keeps me on my toes. So.
Wonderful. We're going to dive into a lot of that. But first, Ryan, let's start these icebreakers. The stories, the true and the fictional tradition.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to start off this time because I think last time you started off. So. All right. So, and just to let you know, Cyndi, we do encourage selfish answers on this podcast. So for the first question, imagine we live in a peaceful world. There's no war, there's no cruelty, there's no violence, murder, robbery, anything. We all live in peace. We're all happy. We all, there's no cruelty to animals, no cruelty to people. So with that in mind, if you could get rid of one thing in this world, what would it be?
Honestly,
Yeah.
political correctness.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give us more Ricky Gervais.
Mhm.
Just,
Yes.
you know what? I succeed and I am talented at taking one foot out of my mouth and
Yep.
inserting the other foot. And I jokingly say I taste my toes because I'm always making a mistake. And I genuinely do not try to. I'm genuinely a sincere person, but I am not politically correct. I'm just an average person and just
Yep.
happy go lucky. And I can't get all these like norms. I'm like, I just don't get it. You know, the world changes so quick and I'm still trying to catch up with it. So,
No, I
but
agree with that. I definitely used to be a lot like you. I used to worry about who I was going to offend and what I said. And then you know what? I just woke up one day and I'm like, I don't care. I'm just like, life's too short. There's no filter
right.
between here and between here for me. So I just say what I like to say. If I offend you, I'm sorry, but it's just me.
And the world moves on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the world moves on. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of the world needs to just have a big hard cup of cement to harden up and just I mean what I don't get about people is don't you I mean you waste so much time being offended by everything, you're missing out on life itself. Like,
Yeah.
just so what if someone says something to offend me, I either tell them that I don't tell them that it offended me. I either laugh it off or I say something just as offensive. It's just that's the only way to live. Like seriously.
I just make the Jamie face.
Yes, you do.
Okay, what's a Jamie face look like?
Oh,
If you
you'll see it. Trust me, you'll see it. I'll point it out
Okay,
during the
okay,
interview.
okay, you
He
brought it
will
up.
make a.
So, okay, so now you
I
have
will
to
say something. I will say something that will probably, maybe not offend Jamie, but Jamie might be like, "Are we going to get cancelled for this?" And he will make the Jamie face, and I
look,
will point it out.
trying to avoid political correctness or whatever, but your Vice President JD Vance in the debate, do you remember that meme that went viral? He made that face. That's similar to what I do. It just when someone says something that's just wrong or I don't agree with, I don't say anything. I just
Yeah,
call
we
it.
we had a we had a guest a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he's an Englishman. So with people that live in the UK, certain words mean certain things. So certain swear words that we might find, well, I don't find any offensive, but that yourself or Jamie might find offensive, they don't really find offensive. So in the Patreon, lucky it was in the Patreon section, he was reading out some titles of short stories that he was reading in a book. And every title had the C word in it. And I'm not going to repeat that word because that's not, I never say that word in front of a lady or Jamie. But yeah, I could see, I was just sitting there laughing and I was watching Jamie and he did the Jamie face for a solid 5 minutes because I know Jamie doesn't like that word.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, I wanted to kind of step in and say to the guy, hey, but then I'm like, I'm having too much fun watching Jamie cringe. Um, so yeah, but in the UK, like I know my auntie lived in the UK for 20 odd years, and my family comes from Scotland and the UK. So that word doesn't mean like the F word is more offensive than the C word in the UK and
Okay.
Scotland and all that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Whereas we see it as offensive, but it's funny that Australia is the country that uses that word the most. But we like some people here in Australia, like Jamie. I'm
You
not
just
saying
like it.
Jamie.
Well,
Yeah, he just doesn't like the word, and it's not a nice word. Just I never say the word in front of females or women because I have respect for you.
yeah.
And
Mhm.
but yeah, it was just
Yeah.
so funny watching Jamie
And
cringe for 5 minutes.
I had to listen to that word so much because when I edited it, I ended up putting duck quack noises over top of it.
Oh, nice, nice.
So,
Sometimes I think that's actually worse
yeah.
because, but exactly. But I very rarely curse, but I hear it all the time and stuff like that. It's not that I'm a prude or anything. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not something, but yeah, trust me, I hear it all the time. you know. So, but I can imagine what
Oh, it was
Jamie's face.
I
I
was
can
getting to
imagine.
the stage where I was like, okay, this is a little bit uncomfortable for me. And if it's uncomfortable for me, I can't imagine how Jamie was feeling. Well, I
Yeah.
can because I was watching him. But
So you don't have a poker face, do you?
yeah, I was just yeah.
Yeah, no, well, I can have a poker face at times. It's just like, it's just something will set me off, but
Yeah, and you
um,
can't just stop
yeah, I can't
reacting.
because I was, I won't tell you why or what, but I was at a friend's baptism. Uh, when was it? It was like a month or two ago.
Mhm.
Um, and it was Filipino family, and there was
Mhm.
22 godparents for this child. And I was making the Jamie face all that time. My best mate sitting next to me counting them, and you just go 2, 3 every time I made the face, and he was just I could not stop it. I couldn't stop it. But
I've never
But
heard of that.
22 godparents,
yes,
22 godparents.
apparently it's a Filipino thing.
I- 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 to
It's
each their
just
own.
insane. Oh, it's look, no, look, that's fine. It's ridiculous, and that's
Even
me.
the
Like,
you should have seen the priest. The priest was doing the Jamie face. You know?
Wait, he was stealing your facial expressions.
No, 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 no. I was counting them. He was saying things, doing things, and this whole thing was just weird. And I'm making the Jamie face the whole entire time. And
Yeah,
and my mate next to me was just counting them. Like he'd just see me
yeah,
do it and go 1,
yeah. Well,
2.
I think I get the image of the Vance, how he would give his
Yes.
facial expressions and stuff. So I can imagine. Usually you could read my face, but sometimes I have to bite my inner cheek so I
Yeah.
don't come across
yeah,
like, oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to be serious and you know it's funny. When
Yes.
you're
Oh,
really down deep, know the subject content is funny,
yeah.
and you've got to be serious, whether it's
Yeah.
you're scolding your kid or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
well, and I would just like to say, if he's listening, Matthew Turner, well done for making Jamie do the Jamie face, because I know he does
He'll be listening.
listen. So
Oh, he probably. Yeah.
we say it all in jest. Like it was just so funny to
Yeah.
see Jamie cringe for like 5 6 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But when you did edit it, did you put like a symbol over his mouth
No. Well, because he was
so
reading
people can still tell what he was going to say?
Yeah, but he's looking down, so you can't see yourself.
Oh,
Because he's reading them
I
out.
see.
That's got to be hard to edit when they're not giving like direct
Yeah.
eye contact with
But
the
it's
camera and stuff and they're looking down and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but it's behind a Patreon. So if you really want to see it, guys, check out the
Okay.
Patreon.
Yeah. See,
Okay.
that's a good way to sell the Patreon. That's
Yeah.
a great way to sell the Patreon. If you
Get
like
the
hearing the
Jamie
C
face,
word,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well, if you like seeing the Jamie, if you want to see the Jamie face and you like hearing the C word, go subscribe to our Patreon. It's available now
Yeah.
through Patreon. So there you
For a
go.
one-time only shot.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, as you can guess, we like going on tangents. Sometimes our icebreaker questions end up being longer than the actual interview themselves. So
Yeah.
we like to try and have fun. It's like a chat between three friends rather than
Yeah.
an interview. So
Yeah.
And you know what? I appreciate that. I genuinely
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I do. So
We really like to get to know the author because then it feels more comfortable them going, now buy my book. It's like get to know
Yeah,
someone before you
exactly.
go. It's just
yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah. And you know what? I like listening to other authors' interviews
Yep.
to get to know them and get to know their routine, how they have actually cultivated their backstories, their worlds,
Yep.
and stuff like that. So, like little dialogues like this where you fall into the conversation is so
Yep.
important because you pick up little nuggets,
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
mhm.
And there's so
Awesome.
many good ones out there. I'm going on a few, like, because I got a book coming out. I'm going like, can I go on someone's podcast? And I've got mine, but can I go on yours? And so I got a few. There's some great ones out there. Tim McKay, someone we had on recently, a Canadian
Yeah.
author. He's just started a new one called All Caps Book Chats on YouTube. Everywhere they live stream. Fantastic. And it's just the same. It's just having a chin wag, and they do fun little games, and get to know people. It's
Yeah.
great. But
Best advice I got was relax and fall into the conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's why we said when we send through our sheet, like spoiler alert, we do send through these questions a little bit early so the guests can prepare. But you'll notice when it gets to the main section of the podcast, it's just there's not very many points because we don't like to be question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
Yeah.
We like to have you tell us about yourself, and then when you talk about yourself, generally I or myself or Jamie will find some points and we'll go off that and just bounce around off that. I feel like that's what makes us different from a lot of other podcasts. But now that we're doing it, I have seen a lot of other podcasts sort of slide into this a little bit.
Yeah.
Some other author podcasts I listen to are slowly starting to move away from the traditional news, bang, 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 and just have a more free-flowing chat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that's what we need. I'm not saying, hey, you're stealing our ideas, but just that's what we want. It needs to be more free-flowing. So I mean, that piques my interest a lot more than point.
Yeah. That being said, let's move on to our second question.
Yes, sorry.
No,
Okay.
you're right. This is the way it is.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Seriously, I do not mind. I genuinely do not.
Yeah. What is something on your bucket list?
Seriously?
Yeah.
From the time I was in high school and I conquered some of my struggles, I wanted to write. And so it was just one book and it's morphed into quite a few books. The other thing that I would really like to do on my bucket list is take my family to Ireland and Scotland, which is where my family's from. So,
awesome. Well, my family's from Scotland and my wife's family's from Ireland. So there you go. I haven't, unfortunately, my dad went over to Scotland and England, and my wife's been back over to see her family in Ireland a few times. I unfortunately have not been able to go to the motherland. But that's actually on my bucket list as well, to go to Scotland and go to Ireland and see the beautiful country over there, because I get so jealous when my wife, she hasn't been over lately, but before COVID, she would try and go over every couple of years for about 6 to 8 weeks because her parents live over there. So she goes over there. But the photos she would send me during her trip, oh God, it's such a beautiful country in terms of, you can be she's from a place called Cork in Cargaline. So it's like a kind of it's like a port town, but it's not like a port town. It has like a harbour and everything. And she would go for walks down there and send me pictures of the beautiful, luscious Greenland and the water and the boats. Oh, it's just that's definitely on my bucket list too. So I can definitely appreciate your answer on that.
yeah, well, I think dreams are so important.
Definitely.
I really, I don't know. I think aspirations and dreams, I think they give you a goal to attain, and I just think they fulfill your life to make it that much richer. So, and
100%.
You could live through your bucket dreams, your bucket list. Some people have hundreds of things they want to do and they manage to accomplish it. If I could accomplish 10%, no joke, 10% of what my husband's accomplished, I would count myself a success. I seriously would.
Well, you should count yourself as a success already, because you said on your bucket list you wanted to write, and now you've written all these books. So that, to me, that's not an easy thing to do, because I could say I want to write, and I can't write. I can barely write a shopping list. And so I'm more, Jamie's the author. I'm more of I read a lot. I read so many books. It's not funny. And so I haven't been at work. I have been out of work, not by choice, out of work for the last 2 years. And I've read so many books over that period of time, especially from our authors like yourself that we get on the show. But to actually be able to say, I want to write, and then do it, and not just do one book, but do as many as you have, that is an achievement in itself. So I think you should say that you have achieved a lot as well. To travel is something, but to write, that to me, that's amazing. So you should be very proud of yourself.
I am genuinely pleased. I will not say that I'm not, but I just
Hmm.
I've got a husband that's got aspirations and dreams. He, like, even right now, we're talking, he's building an 18-foot wooden water wheel. I mean, that's
Wow.
unheard of on a mill, a water mill. I mean, those things are just monumental,
Yeah.
and you sit back, the steward of history, that kind of stuff. And actually, that plays into my book series because that's related. The setting deals with that watermill, and history is what the Therans are. They're stewards of history. So all of this comes from the 22 years of my life and stuff like that. So yes, I'm definitely, Ryan, I'm definitely pleased, but more so, I think writing was fantastic and it is definitely something on my bucket list, but conquering dyslexia to get where I'm at, where I was transposing letters and how I could learned how to read myself
Mm.
and get through that to actually complete those stories, that's success to me.
Oh,
So
definitely. 1 billion%. Because not I don't know anyone personally who has dyslexia, but I've researched enough about it to know that for you to say you've written that many books and you've got dyslexia and how that's just amazing. Like I had no idea that, that
yeah,
was something that you conquered. So that is something you definitely
yeah.
should be proud of.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like I've conquered it, like it's not there anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just for that moment, as long as I'm not stressed, I could write. It
Mhm.
it flows free, but when you feel pressure or something like that, it's like, okay, it's not coming quick, and then I really know the anxiety's hitting me. Yeah. So, and then I start transposing or I'm tired, and I'm done. But yeah, you know your limits as an author and so forth. And I just truly think that I don't know, I'm very thankful that I have completed those things on my bucket list, but I really do want to get to Ireland and Scotland. And then I'd like to write about a journey with my character that I have now over there in that setting, in another historical setting, because I like to use real historical settings in my books and stuff like that, whether it's Egypt or Italy or whatever. So, or Ohio.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Right, and that look, it is a good thing to have on your bucket list because it is achievable. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like a lot of people have bucket lists where they put things like, you know, climbing Mount Everest. And I'm not saying that's not achievable, but for normal people like ourselves, it's probably not achievable in this lifetime. But it's good to have it's you got to set goals that are achievable. You
Yeah.
got to, especially when you're writing, I would assume that you want to have smaller goals so that you can go, yes, I can tick that off. And then as you get through those smaller goals, you can make larger goals and move on that way. So I think that's a really good thing to have on your bucket list because you know what, it is achievable
Hmm.
eventually. So yeah,
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very well done.
I have a method of madness to conquer the small goals and the major goals. So,
Awesome. No,
and it
I
works.
really appreciate it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, the next question is what you will be judged on. Okay. And I say that with no sincerity whatsoever. Um, this question could be, there's two answers for it. It's in your opinion, and if your favorite is not that one, what is your favorite? So in your opinion, what is the greatest sitcom ever made? And if that is not your favorite sitcom, what is your favorite sitcom?
Okay, well, I have two.
Okay.
I'm a Three's Company fan. That dates me.
Okay.
You guys even know what? Okay, come on. Do you guys
I
know
know what
Three's
it
Company?
is.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah.
I know what it is. I haven't watched it, but I know what it is. Yeah, definitely.
Now you got to go back and watch it. But I always liked Three's Company. I just thought it was great. It was nonsensical. It was humorous. The whole thing. Now that I've gotten older and stuff like that, um, I'm not a real big sitcom. I'm really not a big quote TV fan.
Yeah.
I prefer to read books and stuff like that. But I liked Tim the Toolman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
hundred.
you're
No.
not, I like Last Man Standing.
How
Oh,
good
I
is
love
Last
Last
Man
Man
Standing?
Standing. Yes, very, very good.
I love how when they recast, they
Hmm.
really they don't avoid it. They just go like, "You look different."
Yeah.
It's just like,
I like what I like about them is, well, like Three's Company was just kind of happy-go-lucky,
yeah,
Hmm.
and you had your silliness to it and stuff like that. But I like as I got older, I liked the aspect of you had to think a little bit, behind some of the things. And I think Tim the Toolman, I just like the Tim Allen and that
yeah,
kind
he's
of
so
stuff.
good. Yeah.
Hmm. So, and all of those, boy, they really do date me. Ooh,
No,
so,
well, I grew up on Toolman, Tim the Toolman, and and
Yeah.
whatever son it was that was Simba in the Lion King,
hmm
That was Jonathan Taylor Thomas, the
yeah,
middle son
and
with Simba.
he
In the
turns up,
original the only good Lion King,
yeah.
the cartoon Lion King, not the
Yes.
live action Lion King, which was not good.
Ah, but
Um,
there's also the
but yeah.
3D cartoon Lion King, which was good.
Okay, so you guys remember in Tim the Toolman, they had that man that he would always look over the fence.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
the neighbor,
okay,
Wilson.
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 Will, right, right. So I loved Wilson. And it's more so because I never got to see what his face looked like.
Yeah.
Who was he? What did he like? What made him like the reason of what makes sense? And he did it in such a articulate, kind of bizarre way to bring
Hmm.
across a point, right? And you go scratching your head and you're like, what? But I did something like that in my book series. I took a creature,
Okay.
and you don't see him, not even through the short stories that relate to the main series of the Theron series. You don't see it, but I did that. And I kind of took it from that kind of approach with that Tim the Toolman Taylor was doing all that kind of stuff because I like that. That was that little sense of mystery. What was the history behind Wilson and that kind of stuff? It was just kind of cool. So, but yeah, I'm
I like that. I
kind
like
of
that.
weird
See
like
that,
that.
that you got to write what you know. You got
Yes.
that's not weird at all. You got to write what you know. And
Yeah.
I think if I was a writer, I'd be doing the same. I'd be taking little tidbits from here, like obviously that show had a big impression on you, growing up and obviously as part of your life. I used to watch it used to be on over here every Saturday afternoon. I think at about 5:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would just come in from playing outside and sit down and watch it with the family and everything. And obviously,
Hmm.
as we got older, I bought the DVDs, and then Last Man Standing came on, and that's just absolutely phenomenal. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think you're always going to take things from what you know and your journey throughout life and incorporate them into your writing. So I think that's quite good.
Well, I think there's something even like with this Last Man Standing. I only got introduced to that because of my husband.
Okay.
And he's just the main character. He's just got this way, Tim, of just bringing about making sense out of things that really are bizarre. And I
Mhm.
and I just love it. I genuinely love it. I don't know where you stand on totally, Jamie, on I know you said you like it and stuff like that, but there's just something that those shows really hit a core, of drawing people in, and there's intrigue.
Yeah.
Even with Wilson, there was intrigue with Wilson and a little bit of mystery, a little bit of
Yeah.
cleverness, and yet it was funny.
Yeah.
It was wholesome. It was funny, you
Yeah.
know? So,
I always love intrigue, and I always love like open endings, like not completely
yeah.
open, but open enough. There's a TV show called Chuck. I absolutely love it, and a lot of people hated how it ended, but it was just open a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and I loved it. That it just when it was, and this is dating me. There was another show called The Pretender,
Okay,
and
I think I've heard of it.
it got cancelled, and the last episode was everyone on a train, and there was a big explosion, and that was it. It's just like you're like they were supposed to do more, but they didn't.
Yeah, I get drawn into these pilots and
Yeah.
stuff like that. A while back, I did, and then they would end up ending those and not carrying those on. And I was like, oh, some of the things that didn't survive were the things that I loved the
Yeah.
most. But I like to write on intrigue. The Therans series relates so much and based on intrigue and mystery. So,
Cool. Well, let's dive on to the fun question.
okay.
I've got a feeling that your husband may be involved with the answer to this question because if he's building like a giant windmill thing, he may help. But what is your zombie apocalypse plan?
Well, we used to own that mill, and we sold it a few years ago. But anyhow, this is not his zombie apocalypse plan, but it's mine. One, I would definitely get some food, preferably the freeze-dried kind, because it's always good. Just
Yep.
add a little bit of water. 25 years preservation. Anyhow, and I would make sure that since this is an apocalypse plan, I would be taking an HEA book. Now, Ryan, do you know what an HEA book is?
I do not know.
Happily ever after. If you're
Oh,
planning
okay.
through the
Okay.
end of
Yep.
times, then you're going to take something happy with you.
You're not
So
going to
I'm
read the
gonna
road.
I'm going to take a happily ever after book with me.
Yes.
So, but no.
I don't think I've ever read a happily ever after book, to be honest with you. I love my favorite genre of movies is horror, and they never end well for anyone. And I think I love to read horror. I love to read horror novels as well. And again, they don't really end well for anyone.
Now,
Um,
Ryan, it's all about perspective, man.
mhm.
The monster, the killer, whoever is doing the evil, works out well for them, doesn't it?
Well, that's right. I mean, what do they say? Even they always say even the villain is the hero of their story. So
Yeah.
I suppose that does make sense. But when you're watching characters, like I love what they're doing at the moment with these
Disney.
characters that are not in public anymore. So you know, Cindy,
Public
you're old
domain.
enough to remember a character called Winnie the Pooh, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so Winnie the Pooh, I think about 3 years ago, became public domain because there'd been nothing recent done from. So I don't know. So basically, it's generally about 10 years. If nothing has come out with that property by the people who own the property within 10 years, it becomes free domain. So
Okay.
that Winnie the Pooh became free domain. So a beautiful horror writer made two movies. Sequel as well, which this is one case where the sequel is actually better than the original. So it's called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And what this is the first movie is Christopher Robin goes with his girlfriend back to 100 Acre Wood. And he's grown up now. He's in his like maybe late 20s. Takes his girlfriend back there and tells him all about these characters that he used to grow up with. And turns out Winnie the Pooh and Piglet in the first movie are now murderers, killers. Well, they're not human. They're not these. I will put it this way: they're not like a person in a Winnie the Pooh mask. It is actually Winnie the Pooh, the bear, and the piglet, and they go on and kill a lot of people except for Christopher Robin. And then in the sequel, we get introduced to Owl. We get introduced to Tigger, who is a vicious tiger-like creature. And they actually explain how they became what they became. And it turns out that a scientist had been manipulating genes, kind of like the guy from South Park. He was mixing human genes with bear genes and human genes with tiger genes to create these monsters. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. I was in hospital a lot last year and the year before. And I watched the first one when I was in hospital in 2023, and I absolutely loved it. And then they brought the sequel out, and I watched the sequel. I was in hospital last year, and I loved it even more. And now they're starting the ball rolling with there's Popeye, there's a Popeye
Mickey Mouse.
horror movie, which I
Popeye the
love.
Sailor Man lives in a garbage can.
Well, this is a horror movie where Popeye actually goes and murders a whole
I
bunch of
kind of
people.
figured that, Ryan. I kind of figured.
And you know what? They actually released 2 Popeye horror movies in last year. One was just called Popeye's Revenge, and the other one was called Popeye the Slayer Man instead of Popeye the Sailor Man. They also released a Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare, which is actually, I love this because I've always thought of, if you read the original Peter Pan book that came out like back in the 50s or 40s or whatever, it was actually Peter Pan was stealing young boys to take to Neverland, their souls forever. And this movie it expands on this. It puts Peter Pan in as the villain. And Tinkerbell, there's a scene in it where Tinkerbell's shooting up heroin, thinking it's fairy dust, and it's just so much of I mean, I know it doesn't appeal to everyone, but for me, seeing my childhood heroes turned into
monsters,
like my favorite genre, is absolutely brilliant. So they're making this whole Winnie the Pooh universe. So in that Winnie the Pooh universe is Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, is Popeye, and they're doing like an Avengers kind of thing coming up in a few years with Winnie the Pooh, with Piglet and all those, and Peter Pan, and all these childhood characters. There's Mickey Mouse ones. There's not actually Mickey Mouse, it's Steamboat Willie, who was the original Mickey Mouse from the black and white cartoon, but now he's actually a murdering mouse hybrid, which is amazing. Now, look, these do sound B grade or C grade or D grade. And I'm not saying this in a humorous way at all, but they are really not. They are really well done by this team that's looking after all these childhood characters and turning them into horror villains. It is actually, I'm actually looking forward to the next one that comes out. And you know what? Horror has gotten me through a lot of dark times in my life, and I watch at least one horror movie a day now. My wife cannot stand horror. She hates horror. She watches slasher movies. So there's a killer like Scream, or the new one that came out called Hard Eyes. Slasher movies, but she cannot handle horror movies where there's like monsters or possessions or demons or anything like that. So I have to watch those on my computer or when she's in bed. But seriously, if you like horror, check out Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and Blood and Honey 2. You can stream them both on Shudder, which in Australia you can get as part as Amazon. In America, I believe you can do the same, but it's also by itself. So check them out.
My kids a while ago used to watch horror flicks, and when I was like 20, I might have watched like the old black and white, the vampires, because I liked black and white scary movies, and I always thought that they were more horrific than the colored, what was in color and stuff. But truthfully, I'm not like a horror fantasy or anything like that. But just out of curiosity, Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, please tell me he was not the antagonist.
So when you actually when Christopher Robin goes back to 100 Acre Wood, there is a grave for Eeyore, and you find out Eeyore killed himself because he was always depressed in the cartoons, like he was always a sad, depressed. So they played on that. So Eeyore wasn't actually in the movie, but his grave was there because he killed himself. He committed suicide because he just couldn't take the depression anymore. So that's kind of like a play on his character, because I always remember from the cartoons, he was always sad, he was always down and low and everything. So, I guess they played on that, and there was an Eeyore grave. So you don't see him, he doesn't kill anyone, so your memory of Eeyore will remain intact.
Other than you killed him.
Yeah.
Well, he killed himself, but my thing in the first movie was more like Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, I always kind of thought he had a mean streak, but Piglet, Piglet was like the nicest, cutest little thing. And he goes, now in this one, he's got full tusks and everything, like he's grown up. He's got full tusks coming out of his mouth, and he just, the way he murders people, it's so good. So
Yeah, but
good.
those are the ones to be leery about. The quiet,
Yeah,
shy
the
ones.
quiet ones.
I was always drawn to Eeyore, but not in a horror aspect, but like
Yeah.
in the other. Uh, uh, he just seemed like he always had quiet water mind kind of thing, or quiet waters run deep. I always wondered, like, as a character, what he thought.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I always felt sorry for Eeyore because, I just wanted to give him a hug when I was young. I'm just like, he just needs a hug, and no one wants to give him a hug. Like Winnie the Pooh, why don't you just give him a hug and he'll be okay? But then no one gave him a hug. It was just sad.
But if you want to hear a happy Eeyore, watch Transformers, because it's the same voice actor.
Is it really?
Okay.
All you have to do is imagine Eeyore saying Autobots, let's roll. And you can't unhear it. It's like, Autobots, let's roll. It's,
So,
it's the same voice, the same actor.
So the guy who does Optimus Prime is
Yep.
the same guy that voiced
Does
Eeyore.
Eeyore, yep.
Wow.
I had
There you
no
go.
idea. And we have a store that's close to us that's called Fandom, and I like to go in there, and they've got like all the Marvel comics. They've got a bunch of the Transformers kind of stuff. I have one of my best friends is into all of that stuff, got autographs and everything. I loved watching the shows, but I never knew that.
Yeah.
Neither did I, and that's very surprising because normally I'm on top of these kind of things.
Yeah.
So, well
Yeah,
done,
that's kind of
Jamie.
cool. That's clever to know. Thank you.
Awesome.
Oh.
All right, last question before we move on to the good stuff. Okay, so this used to be the Elon Musk question, but since Elon Musk is now in political and doing some questionable things, we decided to change it. So this is Bill and Ted from the old Bill and Ted Excellent Adventure, Bogus Adventure, and then the new movie that came out a few years ago. So Bill and Ted arrive outside your house in a phone booth time machine and say, "Whoa, dude, Rufus asked us to give you a free ride in our phone booth time machine. Where do you go?"
Well, first of all, just have to keep in mind, I think it'd be kind of tight and crowded. I don't know that all three of us would fit, but truthfully, I would go to Egypt.
Okay. Back when the
Um,
pyramids were being created, or
whether it's now or back then doesn't matter. I love Egyptian hieroglyphs. I love I wish I was an archaeologist. Seriously, I mean, bucket list. I would have, if I'd have been smart, I wouldn't have become like a recreational therapist. I shouldn't say that because I love it. I have a passion for helping people, but been a recreational therapist and going on to be a writer. I love archaeology. I love to study the research of different aspects, whether it's even legends and myths. But there is just something about studying history and studying Egyptian history. There's so much around there that we do not understand. And I mean, we think we understand the language because of I'm trying to think of the Rosetta Stone and stuff like that, because there were like three different languages on there. So it was like all written the same. And so archaeologists were able to transcribe that. But there's just so much we don't know.
Yep.
And Stargate, that movie, I loved Stargate.
Mhm.
What?
I love
Yes.
it. I
Yes,
love it.
yes,
I love the whole
yes.
series. I love MacGyver.
Yes, yes. But even the movie when the spaceship came down over the
Yep.
pyramid, I mean that was just like whoever came up with that was
Yeah.
just like it was stellar. It was fantastic. And I'm not like a science fiction quote fan, but I kind of got a science fiction-y vibe to my book series, and it's because of diving deep into history and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I loved Stargate. I still do. Sometimes I'll just rewatch it, you know?
Yeah.
I'll just get on there and rewatch it. I don't know, there's just something about it.
Yep.
And you know what? I have to say, it's kind of scary, especially when you add the music to it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least scary for me. Maybe not Ryan. I mean, we're not dealing with monsters necessarily, but can you imagine the power that one alien held,
Yeah.
in that Stargate, the movie. I'm not talking the series
Yeah.
necessarily. But I mean, that's intense,
Yeah.
you know? Anyhow, now that is intrigue, and that's
Yeah.
what I like. I'm driven by mystery and intrigue. You might be driven by horror, but Ryan, but I love mystery and intrigue.
Yeah.
I'm a National
Well,
Treasure kind of girl with
yeah.
a Stargate vibe. How's that?
Nice.
Well, I will definitely get on board with National Treasure. That is, in
Nicolas
fact, a
Cage.
national treasure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you can't go wrong with Nicolas Cage. But yeah, I've only watched Stargate once, the movie once. Um, and that was just on the recommendation of Jamie and my wife and our mutual friend Chris as well. But I know Jamie has watched all the seasons multiple times, the movie probably multiple times as well. So I feel like I should leave the room while you guys talk Stargate.
Hey, you liked the movie he did after
I
Stargate, didn't
did,
you?
yeah, I did.
Independence Day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
Independence Day was good.
Yeah, same director. So
Hmm. And you see, I'm not one of those that knows the names of who wrote this, who spoke this, or whatever. But I mean, there's certain movies that just stand out.
yeah,
Anything with a quest
yeah,
or a search for a hidden treasure or
yeah,
something. I, I love seeking out the unknown
yeah,
and trying to come up with the answers, whether, like I said, it's a treasure. And I mean, where the historical mill that we used to own, it was built in 1816. And we discovered history around it. Like even they're saying in the general area that we live in, which was hit by the glaciers some thousand years ago, there's giant bones. It's even in the
wow,
museum
yeah,
down here. And so
Wow.
yeah, these giant bones. And so if you could imagine taking off with a story or telling a story about this, I mean, and it's in your backyard. I mean, in America, 1816 is old. We're not talking Europe or anything like that, which they've got 15th, 12th century and stuff like that. You're talking something more current, but still, I mean, there's enough history here that you could build something on, and I love that.
yeah,
No,
100%.
definitely. No, I'm definitely love. Not only do I love horror, but I definitely love mystery and intrigue and stuff like that. So, I think that's amazing that that all these amazing things have been found, not just in where you're from, but all over America, and we don't know hardly anything about them.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah, we don't. And there's museums that hold that history, or there's vaults.
yeah,
I did a lot of research on Edgar Casey. He's the Sleeping Prophet,
Mhm.
and some of the stuff that he would share and stuff like that. It's definitely very interesting. But if I had to answer that question, I'd definitely say that I'd be kind of tight and crowded with Bill and Ted both,
hmm
but I would love to go to Egypt. Seriously, hands down. The only thing is I don't like closed quarters.
yeah,
Oh,
So get
okay.
me in between those little tunnels. I mean, kind
yeah.
of tight.
I saw a video recently of someone going into like where was it it was in Egypt, I think it was like the Valley of the Kings or whatever it is, and he just goes into a certain
Mhm.
tomb and you got to crawl through time. I'm like, oh, I couldn't, I just like, yeah, being
Yeah,
trapped in,
right.
yeah,
It's amazing though, if you think about the desert that's over there and how much, like, even if we don't clean our house for a year,
mm,
how much dust piles up.
yeah,
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
you morph that and speed that up by 100 years,
yeah,
and how much could cover here.
yeah,
The history that's underground.
yeah,
I mean, it's huge. It's got to be huge. I mean, they're uncovering something every day. If you haven't figured out, I love history. That's why
Yeah.
I jokingly say
yeah,
I'm a legend sleuth, but and I don't know, I just have a passion for things like that. So,
No, I think I am, yeah. So I think, and look, you know what? That's one of this is one of my favorite icebreaker conversations because, like we said, we set out 5 questions. You think, oh, that'll take about 10 minutes. But no, it takes about 45 minutes to 50 minutes because we like to go on tangents. And like we said, we like to get to know about you. And,
Yeah.
you know, for our new listeners, this might be their first episode. They get to learn a little bit about me and Jamie, but also they get to know a lot about you. And now when they see your books on Amazon, when they go and check it out, you know, after the podcast, they'll go, oh, or maybe even a few days. Oh, I remember that author because of she really wanted to go to Egypt and she, you know, knows a lot about history rather than just going, oh, what was that author all about? Do you know what I mean? So that's why we like to have these icebreakers at the beginning of the podcast so that we can get to know you.
Yeah, and I appreciate
And
it. I
now
do.
no, that's totally fine. That's what we're all about. And now we get to dive into the journey of yourself. So
This podcast is brought to you by Martin Kearns and the Valor of Valhalla series. In the battle between two ancient evils, can one naive young man become the last hope against powerful creatures of legend? Beneath the Veil is the gripping first book in the Valor of Valhalla dark urban fantasy series. If you like reluctant heroes, infernal myths, and bloody epic clashes, then you'll love Martin Kearns' formidable foray into the unknown. So head on over to readkearns.com and grab yourself a copy of Beneath the Veil today.
if you want to start by taking us on your writing journey, when did you begin to write? When did you find, I know you said it was on your bucket list, but when did you actually seriously start getting into writing?
I had the dream when I was in high school, but I never really tackled it until my daughter. And I'd say that she was kind of an inspiration, but my daughter started getting into kindergarten. I played around with the ideas, and see, I quit my job as a rec therapist to stay home with our kids. And then I also helped with my in-laws because I was blessed to have the best in-laws. And with that, when I had downtime, I wanted to use it effectively. I wanted to do something that would nurture and also that was therapeutic. And writing had always been therapeutic. So, with my husband's encouragement, I joined a local writing group that I'm still with 15 years later. And
Wow.
they have been, yeah, seriously. They have been the one of the best things outside my husband, my family, and my faith. They have been one of the best, outstanding groups that I have ever been with. So I joined them. They've been a big support. It wasn't, I wrote my series and then I decided to pitch it to literary agents and do the querying and stuff like that. And I had some nice positive feedback. I never was one to like think, oh my gosh, I got a rejection letter, which I got plenty of those. But it was more as a redirection and not a rejection.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate. I was at a conference, and this was right on the onset of COVID. And I went to this conference, built this rapport with this person. Fast forward a couple years later, because I was finishing writing the third book, because my family's always come first, my faith and my family. And that I was like, hey, you know what? I'm ready. I'm gonna query hard and stuff. But when the querying got done, because it wasn't going anywhere solid, I was like, you know what? The indie route's got to be my route. That's where I got to be headed, right? And I've seen some really good, successful authors do really well. And I was like, all my books are done. I could sit back, market it and stuff. Boy, marketing's another platform, a learning curve.
Yeah.
But out of the middle of nowhere, this agent got a hold of me and he said, Cyndi, I want you to sign. I want to sign you. I was like, what? I mean, like everything dropped, mic drop.
Yeah.
And because I'd had a relationship with him for a couple years, he knew my material. And so I was like, okay. So I signed with him. But because of the COVID, because of the world changing, the shifting the sands in the writing industry, and I had some nice solid bites with publishers, but he closed his doors. Still to this day, though, I don't ever regret signing with him because it allowed me to get endorsements on my own.
Mm.
It allowed me to do some other things. I was fortunate to get a publicist who then she got Teen Magazine and the Midwest reviews, which Midwest reviews are really hard to get reviews from. So I just feel very blessed. But ultimately, in the end, my writing journey has been like a roller coaster. I've had a lot of struggles. I've had a lot of doors that have opened up, but overall, it's been a building block to make me the woman I am today, the writer that I am. And you could probably see from book one to book two to book three, you could see the gradual changes. But the beautiful thing about I'm thankful about having completed all those books is that all the plot holes are filled in because they've been well read enough.
Yeah.
I should not have any loose ends. And now I feel great that I'm on this indie route and I'm looking at a 8 week, it might end up being a 12-week book tour this fall. So we'll
Wow.
see where the journey goes. But yeah, so I mean, it's been very encouraging. So and like I said, I'm blessed with great support as far as family and stuff. Oddly enough, my main protagonist is a mixture of my daughter and me, but I got to watch her grow up. So the readers get to watch that character grow up too. And my son's a martial artist, two black belts. And so he helped me with choreograph some of the main scenes in the last book. Because I mean, there's there's some intense scenes and not typical scenes either. But I think the best selling point for my book series is you could walk in the house where that character Callie lives. Even though she's fictitious, it's a real house. You could walk in that mill where she lives and touch it. And I think the setting is what really has been part of the impact that's inspired me so much. And that's why I would want to go to Egypt because my books don't just stay in Ohio. They go across seas and stuff like that. So
just back on your son being a black belt. Like, why isn't he part of your zombie apocalypse plan? You know, like he could
mm.
take them all down.
Oh, you know what? You know what? He is a good, fantastic kid, but I'd stand in front of that door before I'd
Yeah.
let him get touched.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, it's always, and I knew that was going to be your answer to that question because, you've got someone like your son who's got two black belts, and then you've got yourself, and he could probably take care of himself, but because you're the mum, you're first in line. You're like, nah, you have to go through me to get to my son. So I love that about that. That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, and keep in mind, you don't reason with zombies.
No.
No.
Oh, it depends
No,
on the
and you
zombie.
don't. What was that?
Depends on the zombie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, knowing me, I'd probably try to do some funny jokes with her or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, nah.
No.
But
No.
no, I am definitely a mama bear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, before we dive into your series, there is a question because you are a romantasy author, aren't you? Are you not? Yes, that's the right.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
So there is an element of fantasy. We have to ask you the Amy Cormack question because Amy Cormack is a guest that came on a while ago, and he
Okay.
sparked this whole discussion about maps in books, and he likes them, but he thinks they're unnecessary. So that's that sort of thing. So. Maps in books, yay or nay?
I'm definitely a yes. And this is the reason why. Okay, so we had talked previously about how we stay on task with small projects and big projects, right?
Mhm.
You have to have lists and stuff like that that keep you going, right? I have 7 boards in my room. 3 are white boards. They have the smallest tasks to the biggest tasks to also the book launch, all of this. So I could stay on task. A map is in essence how an author stays on task with their story worlds to where they know where they're going, what town, the distance from that town to the next town. If they're saying that they're going out west to Timbuktu, and yet in your story you're saying east,
Yeah.
I think it adds a lot of realism to a story. If you, as an author, have that map in there, somebody could just flip the pages if they don't want it. It's like through a sex scene. You don't
Yeah.
have to look at a sex scene, read a sex scene. You could just flip the pages. But truthfully, that map adds an essence. And this is like, that's a map right
Yeah.
there that I have already designed. You know, I'm a strong believer that maps add authenticity, they add that realism, and it also helps the author stay on task to where they're writing and they're staying within the framework, the mindset, and the creativity to keep the story moving. Did I answer your question?
You did,
Yeah,
yes. Because
definitely.
I didn't put a map in my next book, Ancora, but I used one so I could map the journey. You know, I don't think the
Yeah.
book really needed it, but I needed it to figure out, you know.
But what about this? Okay, so there's something, I mean, you give your reader a story, and you know how like all these books now have to have these painted edges and
Yeah.
oh, it's pretty and stuff, but does it add to the context of the
Yeah.
story when you open that story up? Not necessarily it's pretty, it's like it's like a beautiful kitchen, right? But when you open the story world up and you could see, hey, for instance, the dagger that was used
Mm.
to deal with a situation, a treasure or something like that, or the codex or something, that adds something. So whether it's an illustration or whether it's a map, those little things really add, or even pictures. I know a lot of authors lately are putting in illustrations and pictures. And book two, I'm just working on the cover art for that because, like I said, I have the book completely done. It's polished, the words and everything. But I'm just now working on the cover art. You have to make sure that those things are authentic, they're real. And why not put a map in there when it lets your readers know that you just didn't slap this together?
Yeah.
You put your heart, your soul into it to make it a believable world for them. And especially, okay, so most sagas, series, they're only dealing with one world building situation. I'm taking people from the human world into the Theran world, to the lore, everything, to a total different one that just is mind-boggling, you know? And then I'm writing, hopefully working on a standalone right now that will morph into something more. But you have to give your readers something tangible. And I think personally, maps do it. And I think you should put something different in about your map too, that's unique. It doesn't just have to look like everybody else's map, from Sarah Moss or some of the other authors I might have around here. I mean, it has to be something original and authentic to your book series.
Take that, Amy Cormack.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that situation. I grew up on fantasy. I love my fantasy, you know, Lord of the Rings is a big influence, but also my grandmother used to read a fantasy author called David Eddings. He's not as well known, but she got me into reading she would give me his books to read. And there was a series which I've talked about on this podcast before called The Belgariad, which was 6 books, essentially turned into 12, about, you know, a hero's journey, about a young boy who ends up, you know, fighting all these things with his famous aunt and grandfather, who were these famous sorcerers and sorceresses. But what I loved about that book is David Eddings drew a new map for each book, because each book took the characters to a different part of this world. So it wasn't a huge overall map. It was just a map of the areas that they were visiting in that particular book. So it wasn't too overwhelming by like, here's the whole world, set in a place called Sandaria. And here's the whole world of Sandaria. here's the section that we're going to be looking at in the book. And then the next book would show here's the section we're going to be looking at in this book. So as I was reading, I could go back to the front of the book and go, oh, okay, that's where we're at the moment. So for me, I prefer those kind of maps to here's the whole world in the first book, and you've just got to keep going back to the first book, you know, for reference points. Because I am the kind of person who will go back to the map for reference points and go, oh, okay, here we go. You know, so I definitely agree that each author has different views of maps that have different, you know, ways to design those maps, but I think it does give the reader a better entry point into the world that you're creating. I mean, you guys have gone into so much trouble to create these worlds. Why not have a map in there to show the worlds that you've created?
Well, and the interesting thing is what I might put in 452 pages of a book, hardly any of it from the world building aspect is in that book. 90% of it is in like a folder stuck so far away, but it's what you use to bring to life the main essence of that story. So I actually am putting a little bit of more of that world building stuff, like the creatures, what they might look like, illustrations, that kind of stuff, because I think that is so pivotal. But like how we talked about Wilson, right? I'm not letting the reader know what the creature is right now. Even in the prequels where the creature shows up, I'm not doing that. And there's a true story. There's a true story how it, not that the creature's real, but there's a true situation on and happenings on why I created that creature, and I dive into it and share that. But I think it makes a story so much better when you can have those illustrations. And I know it's recent. A lot more authors are doing that because they have these ideas in their head. And whether it's like we're talking about maps in books, but whether it's a map of how that person looks or something like that, or the creature looks. It just, I don't know. I just think it adds so much more to it. So at least, I don't know. And at the same time, I could say that I don't want to know all the looks of a person and stuff like that. I don't want to be bogged down with 100 maps at the front of a book.
Yeah.
One map that's very detailed is fine.
No, I definitely agree. Now, because we are the king of tangents, I'm going to go back to something that you mentioned, which is generally a question I do ask the authors when they come on, because I grew up on comic books, so I'm a big art guy. I'm a big, you know, I love looking at things that make me go, wow, that's how I use my imagination a lot, but I love the comics where they can visualize that. I have been on Amazon earlier on in the chat and checked out your books, and I really like the covers that you've got for your book. I love the way they're designed. I like the way that you know, kind of draws you in, and that's what covers are meant to do. Covers are meant to get the person to pick the book up or on Amazon in digital form to read the first chapter, and then the story will keep them hooked. So with your cover art, is that something you've designed yourself, or did you contract out someone else to design those covers, or is it the same person that does all of your covers? So if you could just talk about your covers a little bit, that'd be great.
Okay, so have you ever heard of the saying that you're a mood reader?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so not only am I a mood reader, but my book covers I want to reflect something related to a mood. So the in one of the in Scarred Legends, that book cover I chose because it added intrigue. And the Scarred Secrets is all about her and now these are the prequels. Scarred Secrets, the reason why I chose the key on that is because it's unlocking her powers. So there's kind of a mystery element. Seriously, yes, I conceptualized each book cover. I'm very much driven by text font book covers. I don't like objects that are so like in your face. I like the font to be what's big, what's up in front and center. And then I like not the text, the title, excuse me, that I like that big up in front. But the objects that I choose have to be mood driven. Intrigue. I think keys that are looking ancient looking, kind of like Arthurian or Atlantean, that kind of thing. In a modern day world, you've got an ancient key. What's the relationship there? And that prequel is 70, 80 pages long, and it's written in first person as if it's a journal entry, kind of like the vibes of a Diary of a Wimpy Kid. It's all driven on that intrigue. But this most recent one that just launched here in January, which is the first novel in the Therans series, Eyes.
Yeah, I can see that.
Are
I'm looking at that right now. I like that.
are like they touch the soul. But this book was her discovering who she is. She's a girl with visions, but not necessarily the visions that we would see or how we would weld them or how we would harness them. And in some relationship, they're kind of like a real kind of situation for me. Um, it's then that's how I don't know, I just come up with those ideas differently than most people. I kind of come up with the idea and then work with the illustrator and we go back and forth on things like that. And a lot of the times I get feedback from my group, but the two things that steer me a lot are intrigue and emotion. I think, especially when you're trying to target the young adult audience, they're driven by angst, they're driven by mystery, they're driven by emotion. They're very much mood readers too. This works today, this doesn't. And they want things short, but a lot of times, hey, can't give it that way. But I definitely like to write and read books that have really great covers. And that's why I came up with those images.
Yeah.
Well, I really like you can tell without even putting on the cover that it's a prequel, you can tell those three books are all connected because like in looking at it, I would say you've got the key on the first one, you've then got the mask on the sorry, I do apologize. I'm going back
Yeah,
to it now.
Scarred Life has the mask. Yeah.
Correct, yeah. And then you've also got, Scarred Legends and that looks like I'm just trying to make out what's that on the front cover of Scarred Legends?
I'm nervous you caught me off guard, but I forget. But I know one was the key and the masks, and the masks look like the uh Janice.
The old theater masks, the ones that you
Huh?
used to see
Yes,
in
yes,
the
yes.
theater
I was
masks,
trying
yeah.
to get them to look like in January, how those
Mhm,
masks, like on ancient doorknobs, but I could not
mhm.
get that. So I went with those older looking masks and stuff like that. Now, the first book, and I know this is not often done, but the first book, which is Scarred Legends, is truly Callie, her mom and dad, and how their story catapulted off to make this whole series. So it's kind of like you get a little piece of that. But yeah.
Yeah. So are you using you're using the same art same do you
Yes,
design them so you design them yourself and then you pass it on to your cover designer?
yes, I did. I worked with a cover designer initially on the Therans series, and she did really great. And then, and I was very happy with her, but the prices, like, they go up. And when you're an indie author, you're like, ooh, I gotta wait back here a minute.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine, Chrissy, she was like, you know what? I think this person's really good. And I'm like, okay. And it was get covers, believe it or not. And I was like, okay, I'll try them out. And my gosh, hands down, they are right at my price point. But not just that, they work with you. And they really, this lady, Karen, that I've been working with, she comes back and forth at me. Are you sure you want it that way? How can I do it this way? And like I'm doing a short story right now. It's a Christmas short story. It's got the book cover of a tennis ball and all these Christmas bulbs cracked open like eggshells with this huge claw from this creature in on it. And she's like, I love this.
Mm.
I mean, I like weirdism, I like emotion, I like that intrigue. And they have worked great with me. And hands down, I will continue working with them because they
Awesome.
get it's nice to work things out in an email because when you write things out in an email, for me, I do so much better writing it out and how I visualize it to
Mhm.
rather than how I can tell it. So,
Yeah. Well, the covers are definitely very, very, very good. They grabbed me straight away, especially the prequel covers. They're just you can tell they're part of a series because it's the same essential color scheme, just with that different image coming through the glass at the front of it. So, yeah,
well, in the
definitely,
prequel,
yeah.
yeah, the prequels have their own color rhythm
Mhm.
in there. And
Yeah.
then the main book series. Now, okay, so the Therans, Secrets Beneath Scars, is
Mhm.
blue. And then the last book, I'm not gonna, it's the Therans something. And
Mhm.
it's got one of the best titles in the world. I absolutely love it. It's Solid Red. It's this
Okay.
in-between book that I'm working on right now that will have the mist that's in the blue. It'll have the mist in the blue. It'll be focused more purple, and then it will have the little bit of the red. But I just got some of the information and back, and then the visual, and it looks like on the bottom section in the shattered glass, because the shattered glass is significant to my
Mhm.
main character, it looks like reflection of fire. I
Oh,
mean, they
Nice.
they really seriously, and I had no idea. Now, keep this in mind. I could visualize some of this, but I did have a really good graphics designer friend of mine, Jeff, and he helped
mhm.
me like lay this out. My daughters helped me. I've had a couple friends from my writers group give me solid feedback, but there's been a lot of heart and soul put into this because in the end, I mean, Jamie Ryan, this is what I'm going to be recognized for. A polished book,
Mhm.
something that was clean for teens, something that adults, like Alison Goodman's Dark Days Pack book, adults are driven towards that. Even Twilight, 50-year-olds were driven towards reading that. I want people to engage with my book series because they think it's cool and they think it's dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, I get into history, but it's not heavy, but it'll rock your world. I mean, definitely rock your world.
Yeah. Cool. So we've talked about the covers. Now let's open them up and talk about what's inside them. So tell us
Okay, okay.
tell us about the series and like how you came to create it.
Well, that's an interesting story. So, I like to jokingly say that, well, first of all, I've always been intrigued by legends and myths.
Yeah.
And I've always taken the time to sit back and analyze what would this be if it was different? Why does it have to go this way? I'm
Yeah.
just that type of a person. But
Mhm.
so when in my time when my kids were growing up, I started coming up with this character, and ever since then, her name's always been Callie. No change in the name. Her name's been Callie. She would stalk my thoughts. I'd be riding in the car and I'd have to say, okay, Erica, which is my daughter, I'm like, please just text this and send it to me. But I would see these like choreographed scenes in my head. It would start out like the motivation, the dilemma, the cliffhanger, and it was like it would roll in story film format, and I'm like, okay, and it would not stop until I wrote it down. So I'd have a notebook by my bed, and my husband got to the point, Cyndi, turn off your flashlight, because I'd be like there, and no joke, I would be. But after a while, when I got a lot of these images together, I'm looking at all these pieces and I'm like, what do I do with this? You know, it, it didn't make sense. And so finally, I started giving a little bit of personality to this image that I saw, because I knew that her parents were dead. I knew how her parents were died, and I knew why, but I had to put something behind it, a story world that was authentic. And so I'm standing in the mill one day and I'm like looking around, I'm like, wow, what about having her work here? What about, bringing to life an actual real setting? What about having her live in the house that we've lived in? You know, why not? I could taste it, I could touch it, I could smell it, I could bring it to life. And so I brought it to life on these pages and stuff like this. Um, Callie is a rare, I think by the time you get to grow with her going through the story series, she comes off apprehensive, hesitant.
Mhm.
She doesn't own her identity. She doesn't want to own her identity because she's seen the misery that's been behind her. I mean, the opening scenes are just like, my daughter said when she first started reading it, and other people were just like, okay, we couldn't get through the first two scenes because it was just like, it just stops you. Not that it's gore, no, but it's emotional, you know?
Yeah.
So, boy, I forget, is there something else I should be telling you? I'm trying to think if I answered your question.
No, no. Well, that's how you created it. But like, what's the overall premise, plot?
Okay.
What's the world like?
Um, Okay, well, let's just say Secrets Beneath Scars is about Callie Tresham, her self-discovery journey. But she's not a typical teen. The story goes from an orphan girl learning about herself, the answers to her origins of her powers, and when she stumbles across a conspiracy
Ooh,
in another world.
well, there's the intrigue.
And yes, 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 and the death threats that she gets because um, let's just say history repeats itself if you don't learn from it.
Yeah.
So, but
Now,
hopefully that's a little bit.
I have a question for you, and this is based on a previous guest that we had who wrote romance, and I liked it. So I've already got the first book of your series because I always like to read, read the book of someone that we talk to because I feel in these chats we get to know you, and I feel like I know you, so I want to read what you wrote.
Okay.
It's very rare that I don't actually finish a book because of whatever reason. But and with all due respect, and Charlotte, if you're listening, you are a fantastic writer. But the book was a little bit too spicy for me in terms of romance and there's a lot of sex scenes and quite intense stuff. So how spicy is your book?
I thought you said you read it.
No, I've got it. No, I've got your book. I've got your.
Okay,
What I
okay,
do is when I talk to the authors. Usually within the
right, right,
first
right.
15 to 20 minutes, I get your book, and I have gotten your book, but I
Live.
haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Live on interview, I have your book, but I will be reading it. But I don't want to like. I generally I can deal with a little bit of spice, but if it gets too much, I don't know. It's weird. It's like when you're watching a sex scene with you in a movie with your parents. It's kind of awkward. And even though I'm reading the book, I feel like I just get a little bit awkwardish around that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's clean. I do
Okay,
not write
perfect.
sex scenes in my book.
Oh,
It was one of those things that as I was writing and I was like, well, gee, if and I know I could write a sex scene, but I don't want to, you
yeah.
know, because I mean, gosh, that would be so embarrassing to have your children read a sex scene.
Yeah.
But I did, it's just not my style.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say is this romance, I wanted it to feel real. I wanted
Yeah.
it to feel heartfelt, like they knew each other so personally. You know, it wasn't just some books you pick up and it's like they kiss and it's just a peck.
Yeah.
Mine is
Mhm.
tender. It's a paragraph long, no sex scene, but it's a tender kiss. I I could not imagine. I live a real life dream. I am married to the most real husband, the most authentic man, the most fantastic husband. I know what love is. It's not just because I walk my faith and I love my Lord, but I know what real love is. And I wanted that to come out in this story about these two characters. And I mean, Tristan, my main character, is is an essence of the depth of my husband and the stoicness of him, because my husband can be kind of stoic, but he's really not when you get to know him. But I just love that realness about Callie and Tristan, that there's something so passionate, real, without having the sex or anything.
Yeah.
They have a chemistry and stuff. Now, it's interesting because Zara Miller, fantastic book reviewer from Teen Magazine, she was almost like you could separate the romance from the story because the story could seriously stand on its own.
Mhm.
She said, that's how good I wrote it. Amazingly enough, there's no way that this story could have ever been written and carried itself unless it had the depth of that romance, especially into book 2 and into book 3. I have pushed the limits, and that's one reason why Jonas picked me up, I believe, was because I pushed the limits when I wrote things, not sex, of course, but the limits on emotions, on intrigue and stuff like that. And I think that is what I hope people, when they pick that book up, they will see. So no, you won't have a problem. You won't turn blush red or anything like that reading anything. But I hope that when you do read a kiss scene, you will actually look at it, wow, they are tender. That's real, you know? And
Definitely.
to add to that, the realness of this book, a lot of books out there that are written now are there's no parental guidance. Mom and dad aren't there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really, come on, that's not real in life. You know, maybe some parents are MIA, you know, but in reality, that's not real life. And when you add that parental figure, even though it's not her parents, it's her grandfather, that only adds that much more tension to a story world that's fantasy related, that's dealing with conflict, tension, everything like that. So that only adds that much more intrigue. So anyhow, yeah. So, but no, you could read it without any fear that your ears are going to turn red.
No, I appreciate that because, as I said, as much as I really did love Charlotte's writing, it was just a bit too spiky for me. And like that's not to say that it's not a great book. And there are a lot of people out there who love those kind of books, and I'm sure she
A
has
lot.
plenty of other people read it. But I definitely will be diving into your book. Would you recommend that I read the prequels first or start with the main book?
That's the interesting thing. Everything, because like I said, I took the time to write a lot of this. The 3 prequels and the 3 books were done before I launched. You do not have to. You could pick up book 1 and not even pick up a prequel and know what's going on. The
Okay.
nice thing about the
Okay.
prequels is, like I said, her journal gives you a little taste of who she is because it's her writing that story. You know what I mean? It's her
Mhm.
diary entries and stuff. Scarred Legends is about her parents, which definitely. So the first book is more in the human world. The third book is the second book is in the Theran world. Okay, but you don't have to
Mhm.
read any of those at all. The prequels, you just pick up with the book and just move on. So I think it was
Okay.
cleverly written.
And that's what I think is really good because if you get people who are reading the first book of the series and want to know more, then they can go, okay, well, I've now got 3 prequels that I can read just to get a bit more of a sense of these characters. So definitely, I love the fact that I'm not going to have to read I probably will read the prequels, but the fact that I'm not going to have to in order to understand what happens in the first book. So that's
Yeah.
really good. So
I
yeah.
will tell you the amazing thing is that each book is different. Like book one is kind of like a high school setting with mystery and world developing around it, hidden world, hidden society, hidden powers kind of thing. Book two
Uh-huh.
totally blows you away because it's a total different historical setting, and it definitely dives into why Therans are stewards of history in the history that they have to uncover related to conspiracies. And I mean, there's some blowout court scenes that would make you just like, let's put it this way, the court scene in book two took me almost 4 months to write because I had to study how a court scene's done too, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, and then you have to put the richness of those twists, those turns in there. So, but yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, I think now's a good time to dive into the Patreon. So for those who aren't Patreoning, let our listeners know where they can buy your books, where they can follow you and stay up to date with everything you do.
Okay, I was originally wide and everything. I went to KDP Select, but you can still buy everything on Amazon and paperback. And like I said, I'm positioning to where I'm doing the book tours and stuff like that this fall. But Amazon is the spot.
It's also on Kindle Unlimited I'm a Kindle Unlimited fan, so the first book is actually out on Kindle Unlimited. So if you are a Kindle Unlimited fan of ours that listens to our podcast regularly, you can grab book one through Kindle Unlimited. So and I believe you guys get paid per page that we read.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
on
that's
Kindle
the way
Unlimited
I
or something like
understand it.
that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I will just say this. If
awesome.
anybody reaches out to me, they could reach out to me on my website. But if they reach out to me, I do respond back.
Yeah.
And I do have Legends, Myths, and Lies newsletter. And I have a good subscribership there. And you know what? I put weird things in there. Legends too. So, but that's
Cool.
why I disclose a lot of my stuff. So
Sweet. Well, let's dive into the Patreon and have some fun questions.
So with the Patreon questions, they can be short answer questions, but we do encourage you to elaborate on them. So they're generally, this or this, but please elaborate on why you chose that answer.
okay.
Awesome. So I might get things kicked off, Jamie.
Take it away.
All right. So first question for Patreon, and Ryan is scrolling down. Here we go. Do you like fiction? Do you prefer fiction or non-fiction?
I like to escape. So I prefer fiction. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I preferred nonfiction, but that's when I was doing a lot of research and reading up on legends. And I still put that kind of the nonfiction category because you could pick up the history magazine or, something like that. But no, right now, hands down, I like fiction.
Awesome.
So the next one I'm gonna know already in advance what your answer is going to be just from the conversation.
Okay, so you have to tell. So then Jamie, you have to say what my answer is going to be, right? Okay.
No.
And then you ask me the question.
Okay, your answer's going to be fantasy, and the question is fantasy or sci-fi.
Fantasy. Hands down.
Although that could have thrown me a little bit because you did say you like Stargate. So that could have been, it could have gone either way, honestly.
Yeah, but Stargate's it's kind of out there on both realms if you think about it. It's another world and stuff like that, but it has its fantasy elements too. But between the two, I'm more fantasy.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think me and Jamie are both more fantasy as well, to be honest with you.
I like both, to be honest. But I don't like my sci-fi too talky, sciencey. Like, I guess I like fantasy-esque in sci-fi worlds.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a question.
Yeah.
Do you guys like Dune?
Dune.
I don't.
Take it or leave it.
Okay.
My wife does, and both of our other friends, Chris and Michael, like it, but I know Michael is really into the Dune universe. He's gotten all the audio books, he's read all the books, he watched the old movies and everything. I tried to watch the new movie, the first one, and I just couldn't get through it. But my wife recently just watched both movies and she absolutely loves it. So it's just, yeah, I think it's a bit, I'm not really a sci-fi guy. Like, I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong, and my wife introduced me to Star Trek, so I like some of the Star Trek shows, like Next Gen or Voyager, that kind of stuff, but I'm not really a sci-fi guy. I'm more of a fantasy guy, like Lord of the Rings, all that kind of thing.
I'm more Star Trek than Star Wars.
I've learned you're always one or the other, aren't you? You can't like both at the same time. Like I love Star Wars, but Star Trek, like I enjoy, but I think I enjoy it more because my wife enjoys it. I don't, but it's not like I'm not rushing out. If there was a new Star Trek movie tomorrow, I'm not rushing out to go and see it. Whereas, with the new Star Wars movies, well, at least the first one, The Force Awakens, I was like, I need to see this on opening day, kind of thing. But yeah, I always find you're either one or the other. You're either a Trekkie or you're Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What's the first book you ever remember reading?
Jack and Jill.
Okay.
I
Was
think
it the Jack and Jill Run Up the Hill, or was it a horror version of Jack and Jill?
No,
Like all
it was
of our other books
actually
we were talking
Jack
about?
and Jill Went Up the Hill. And my first word I ever learned how to read was COME, because I kept transposing like the M and the O.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Then I didn't know. But yeah, I remember that. And I was a late bloomer when it came to like reading and stuff, but I was blessed to have some really fantastic teachers that were like, okay, we'll get you and your twin sister through this, which my twin sister didn't have issues really to speak of. She wasn't in the learning disability classes or anything, but you know what? I had determination and got through it, but I definitely.
So you said you've got a twin sister. Are you identical twins or are you just paternal
We're
twins?
identical. We're identical.
Oh, wow.
So how do we know this is actually
be
you?
your twin sister filling in. Yeah, exactly.
What was that? You both were like talking.
I
missed
said,
it.
how do we know that you're not just your twin sister filling in and you're not, the real you's not just off doing some writing and she does your publicity?
I won't ever tell. We look enough different now that I think you could tell, but back when we were in high school and stuff, yeah, it was kind of hard. I think it was for some people and stuff like that, So
Did
yeah.
your parents do the thing of dressing you guys up to look the same and everything like that?
My aunts and uncles did. Not my mom as much. She let us have our own individuality. She was, for pictures we might have done that, but day-to-day stuff, no. And my older sister, my twin sister was very close with my older sister. And I was very close with my mom and my grandmother. So it was kind of like I was the third wheel with, us siblings and stuff like that, but my family's close. But still, those two were always off together, my older sister and my twin sister when we were younger.
Did you ever play pranks on your parents? Did you ever play pranks on your parents by trying to pretend to be the opposite sibling?
We did at graduation. My twin sister got my diploma, and then I sat in her seat and I took her diploma. But the sad thing is, nobody really paid attention to it. Nobody really knew. Now, my mom and my stepdad, they knew, but nobody really even paid attention to it. Now, with twins, you get into double the trouble. And we loved to play jokes when we were little. Whether it was putting Desitin on toilet seats and watch my mom sit down and slide off. We were always we so innocently tried to help out, like and clean the carpet with Dawn soap.
Oh, nice.
That didn't go over too well. But hey, we tried to help. But yeah, no, double the trouble with twins. Unfortunately, I didn't even write about, the twin aspect in my book series or anything. But that's all right.
I always get intrigued by twins. I don't actually know any twins, so now officially I can say I know a twin. But I always get I always get intrigued by twins about the whole, if one of them feels pain, you can sort of get a tingling of that, or you kind of have that link together. But it sounds like your twin sister was more more friendly with your older sister than she was with you.
We were close, but she was definitely more friendly with my older sister because they just had this great bond. Um, I could honestly tell you, twins do have some innate understanding between them. My mom always said that it was easier to raise my twin sister and I than my older sister, just because we would play with each other, but we had like our own little language between us and stuff like that. Um, and we have a great relationship. The interesting thing is though, when like if she needed help, I knew it. I knew it, and I'd be able to say, "Hey, mom," and vice versa. There's just something about this heavenly vibe or whatever that is there with twins. I think that's even the same way if we, as my faith grows stronger, I think we have that connection with our family members and stuff, our children and stuff, if we only listen to it.
What's the last book you read?
I am reading To Be a Fae Queen. It's put out by an indie author, Copeland. I actually just got a hold of her. I write for a small press, book reviews for a small press, and he prefers indie authors to be in there. So once a month, I take that time it's my way of giving back. And he's got a rather large subscribership, but that's what I'm reading now. And I have to admit, it's really good.
Cool.
It's really good.
That's good, and it's always good when you can. I found since starting this podcast, like before this podcast, I would only read like 4 or 5 specific authors, like Stephen King, Jane Coote, Christopher Pike, David Eddings, and then since starting this podcast, what 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I find that I actually enjoy indie authors' work more than I enjoy, my go-to Stephen King's or my go-to David Eddings and stuff like that, because it's such a variety of different authors. So I think the more that we get indie authors out there, like you're doing with your book reviews, in the press, I think is really good, because indie authors are sometimes even better than the guys that have been doing it for 20, 30 years, like Stephen King. So 100%. I That's why I love doing this podcast, because I know I'm 9 times out of 10. I think there's only been one episode of this podcast where I haven't gotten the person's book. I'm going to get a new book to read, and I'm going to get a new world to explore and dive into. So, and I'm like Jamie. I'm a completionist. So if I really like your first book, I'm going to go back and get the prequels, and I will have to read that, and I can't do anything else until I read those, because I need to read your complete works. And then I've already followed you on Amazon, so when your next book comes out, I get an alert, and then I'll be getting that one as well. So that's just what I love about indie authors.
Well, Ryan, you won't have to wait, because I would be more than honored to give it to you before publication on both of those 2 books.
Arc
And I
reader.
could click and send it to you today.
Oh wow, that'd be awesome. Yes, please.
That's the blessing of having it all done. So
yeah. Oh, I'm on board from that. I love, and you know what? At the end of the day, if I actually really like it, I will buy it. I'm one of those people. I will buy it when it comes out anyway. Regardless of having read it already. I'm one of those people who, if I read it on Kindle Unlimited and I love it, and I can get it in paperback, or I can pay for it on Kindle, I will. So, that'd be awesome. If you could, that'd be brilliant.
Oh yeah. Hey, yeah, especially if you like it. Yeah, sure.
Excellent.
I just bought an author's book after having interviewed her on somebody else's platform. Not I co-host with him, but because I really there's just sometimes you just have that connection with somebody in their story world and stuff like that, and you want to support them. And I totally
Mhm.
agree. I totally agree. And you know what's amazing? My husband and I, we've talked about this, and a really good friend of mine, Jeff, we've talked about this. The market is so drenched in everything with repeats
Yep.
of Spider-Man,
Yep.
Yeah.
all these people with all these superpowers and all kind of like the similar story vibe and stuff. The originality is in a lot of the indie author books. That if they would take the time to go look at those indie authors and see what they have written that is real. Those are organic. The concept, yeah,
Yeah.
the concept is going to be similar, but it's going to be so much more richer
Yep.
and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I mean, and you know, I didn't, my characters, uh, like Callie, she's dyslexic. That's me, you know,
Yeah.
she's not perfect. That's one of her traits, but Um, you want something that's real. Now, there's a author, oh, Rebecca Yarros. I read her first book, Fourth Wing, and she's a traditional published author. I will have to say, and of course, I skip pages that have things because I don't care for the sex.
Mhm.
Um, but I will have to say, I thought her book was real because it had a little bit of her in it because of the disability.
Mhm.
And I think that makes a story so much richer when an author's got part of them in that story. So,
100%. Could not agree. And they say you write what you know. So, that
exactly.
way you can feel like you're reading, not only you're reading a story about a fictional character, but you're getting little tidbits of the author within those characters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely. Awesome. Okay, the next question is, what's a book on your to-read list or I'm assuming, like all readers, I'm assuming you have a to-read list. What's one of the books on there?
Okay, so I kind of go indie, then I'll do traditional, indie, traditional.
Hmm.
Lately, it's been a lot more indie than traditional. But I do want to read, I think it's the second book, Onyx Storm or something, in Rebecca Yaros's book. I did, and I know um, another one I want to read, and it has not launched. But it's a I do like Christian romance.
Hmm.
Um and it's Prayers Under Fire.
Mm.
And that
Okay.
author, I do know her book's coming out, I think later this year. So you know, you get little tidbits, but those are some of my books. I'm like I said, I'm a mood reader. I could go from fantasy to not necessarily techie sci-fi, but I love fantasy. I love everything has to have an undercurrent of kind of like a romance, you know, the chemistry between people. But I like all different genres. So,
Awesome.
Cool. Um, Now tell me, are you familiar with an old character called Gumby?
yes, he's the green stick
Yes.
figure.
Hmm.
Yes, that is
Claymation.
flexible and
Yeah.
bends and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But the point behind the question is he jumps into books in the show and all that stuff. So if you
Yeah.
could jump into a book just to visit, you don't have to live there, just for a sticky beak, what book would you want to jump into?
Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice.
Ooh.
Wow, you had that one fired up, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay, so there's something about that era that is just attractive, even whether it's Scotland, Ireland, England, or
Yeah.
just that atmosphere, the
Hmm.
history aspect of that era. And there's just something about the chivalry. And there's always an undercurrent in how they say something because they don't say it directly. They've always got to be polished or they can't, the girls always have to talk about weather. They
Yeah.
can't talk about anything with substance. And so you've always got this intrigue, really what are they getting at, you know, and stuff. I would love to be in a Jane Austen book. And it doesn't have to be Darcy or,
Yeah.
and I know Emma is another book that Jane Austen wrote, but I just love that time era, and I love how men were men, the chivalry was there, and women were women, but at the same time, I don't want like women suppressed or anything like that. But there was something so gentle and real. I'm married to one of those men that are dynamic, that's
Yeah.
chivalrous, that is real, authentic. I mean, it, I don't know. It's just really weird, but I love books like that. I'm a huge Jane Austen fan. So
Awesome. I think that was literally the quickest response we've had to that question, because a lot of people kind of have to think about it, and I love that the fact that that no, this is exactly where I want to go, exactly where I want to be, and I just love that the fact that yep, this is where I'm going.
I could add to that question though.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I mentioned Alison Goodman, the Dark Days Pact book, right?
Yeah.
She's
Yep.
one of my favorite authors. She took like that old era, you like Jane Austen kind of thing, and she put her characters in there, and then she wrote a fantasy world around it. I love it.
Okay.
I love stuff like that. Different setting, different time, and then you get new ideas, new histories, and that's what we in the movie industry, they're not doing. They're not picking up on some of these books that are really great out there and stuff like that. I love the hidden world within a current society, which is what I write about. But I want there to be substance. I want there to be, why are they there? What are they doing? The whys have to be answered, and that's where maps come in and all that. But anyhow, I'm a Jane Austen fan through and through. My husband probably would actually, I take that 2 nights ago, I made my husband watch. And there's a 5-hour Colin Firth,
Wow.
Jane Austen, and there's a newer one that came out like 10, 20 years ago with Keira Knightley, and
Yeah.
I loved it. But the one with Keira Knightley is the one I made him watch the other night. I can recite words practically back to you.
Now on this, how do you feel about the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies movie?
Okay. So I actually think that was kind of cleverly done.
Mm-hmm.
It was interestingly done. I did watch it. It was not my favorite,
No.
but I would probably give it a 7. I probably would.
Uh,
And I think it was because it was kind of, I like it when you take a component here and mix it with something here.
Yeah.
Maybe not Winnie the Pooh and Blood and Honey, but I like the aspect of more along the clean, easier line of things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I liked it for once. It wasn't an overly graphic zombie movie. It was.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And it had Matt Smith in it, so he's always good value.
Matt Smith is absolutely amazing in everything. And the only thing that I haven't watched him in is that Game of Thrones prequel, House of Dragon. I just can't get into that show, but everything else he's been in. I even watched the Doctor Who episode. So he's a brilliant, brilliant actor.
Yeah. I love to get into shows like you just mentioned Game of Thrones and stuff. But I watch like the first version and the second, not first version, but like the first showing and then the second showing, and then I'm like, it just seems so repetitive. You know what I mean? It's just so repetitive, and I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I lose interest very quickly. So
Yeah, I felt that way with The Walking Dead. Like the fact that it went 15 or 16 seasons or whatever.
Still going.
I dropped off. No, it's still going. There you go. I got off. I fell off, I think, around season 5 when it was just the same thing over. It was like essentially the same premise. They just moved to a different location.
Yeah.
It was like where the first season was great because it's 6 episodes, really good. And even I was having this conversation with my dad the other day. He will rewatch the first season and stop at the first season. And he goes, that enough for me. I really like that. But the second season, that they go to a town, they're attacked by zombies, they move. Third season, they go to a prison, they're attacked by zombies, they move. It's just the same thing over and over and over and over again. Whereas, my wife can watch every Walking Dead season there is and still find interest in it. You know what I mean? Like it's just I just can't stay on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give one word and I want to see what your response is. Lost.
Love it. Love it.
You loved
Yeah.
it? But wasn't it kind of repetitive?
It was, but what I really liked about Lost is I love, now if you put this in a TV show, I guarantee you I will watch it to the end, no matter how repetitive it gets. I really love the flashbacks and then the flash forwards to, so every episode focused on a single character. And in between the actual parts on the island, they showed back to that person's life before the plan. And then when they've done that with everyone, they flash forward to show, when you find out that, well, I mean, theoretically, that they went back to the real world, what happened and how they were trying to get back to the island. So with that, I love that premise in a show or a movie or anything like that. Anything where it's flashbacks from the original event, you've got me. And that's why Lost had me till the very end, because they kept doing that. And it did feel like it got a bit repetitive, but I enjoyed it because of that aspect of the show.
I enjoyed it to a point when it started getting repetitive, and I was just like, oh. And then I think we waited until the season ended, and I think we just watched like the last ending, and I was like, that was the ending.
Yeah.
I honestly predicted the ending about halfway through season 2. I turned to my wife, and this is spoiler alert for a really old show, but I turned to my wife and I said, I bet you they're in some kind of limbo, or they're in some kind of, and it ended up being purgatory that they were in. And then they eventually all went on to heaven. And I said, there you go. Maybe that was from me watching Supernatural so much, because I love, there's a whole season where they deal with purgatory. But I knew halfway through the season, shut up, Jamie. I knew halfway through the season that I said, I guarantee, I think they're either dead and they're in heaven, or they're in some kind of limbo reliving this event over and over again until they get into heaven. And that ended up being it.
Yeah, my husband has a great ability to figure things out before the ending on multiple levels. And so, yeah, he probably, if he told me all the endings that he predicted, he probably would ruin all the shows for me, because he usually has the ending in mind before.
Well, that's my wife. She will predict, like, we'll be watching a murder mystery or something, or a crime movie or crime show, and she'll go, I bet you this person did it, or I bet you this, and she'll pick it. I very rarely get it right. I always fall for, I'm like, no, that character. We watched a true crime documentary the other night where she hadn't seen what happened, but with a lady in her 60s, that was, I'm not going to go into details, but she was brutally murdered, and they were trying to figure out who did it. And they went to talk to her parents, and her stepfather was 90 years old. 90 years old, right? And her mother was about the same age. And so I'm not thinking they're 90-year-old elderly people. They got nothing to do with it. And Steph was like, I bet you it was the stepdad. And I'm like, he's 90 years old. How would it be the stepdad? He wouldn't be able to overpay. It was the freaking stepdad that did it. And he caught her by surprise. And I was like, and she always does that. She's really smart when it comes to, that kind of thing. She'll be watching a movie, 20 minutes into it. Yep, I bet you that's the killer. And it turns out to be the killer. And it's very rare that she gets stumped and can't figure out who actually did it. So,
Yeah.
All right, no worries. Next question is, okay, so this is a setting where, you're sitting down on there's a nice fire in the fireplace. You're sitting down on the floor, and who would you pick in that instance to read your favorite book to you? So not on Audible, just literally you're sitting on the floor in front of the fire. This person is sitting in a chair. with the book and they're reading the book to you, who would you pick to read your favorite book? Can be anyone, celebrity, dead or alive, whoever.
Now this one, actually, believe it or not, I think it'd be kind of neat to have my husband read the story to me.
Oh.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what would be the book?
My book.
Oh, your own book. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because my husband, like I told you earlier, there's his Tristan is kind of like after him, like developed
Yeah.
after him.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of neat to hear his voice coming through in the dialogue and stuff like that of the story. And Callie is kind of an essence of definitely my daughter in me. So it'd just be kind of cool. And I mean, we heat with wood, so maybe after you guys get off here,
You're making a
I
reality.
go out and say, hey, Richard, I want you to read to me. But no, seriously, probably that. Now, I will tell you this too. I am a big Stephanie Myers fan.
Okay. Yep.
Twilight was a really the written version. The movies, yeah, I liked them, don't get me wrong, and yeah, I rewatched them. And yeah, I'm an Edward fan over Wolf. Yeah, I like the vampires over the wolf. But I would have to say that Stephanie Myers, if she would read a book to me, I'd be honored. So
There you go.
Yeah, you know what? I read all of the Stephanie Meyer Twilight books. Um, so I read them. I actually started to read them after I saw the first movie.
mhm.
See, me and a friend of mine went to see Twilight in the cinema, thinking it's a vampire movie, right? So it's gonna be good. Like I don't watch movie trailers hardly at all. So I was like, cool. Man, I took this guy. I'm like, come on, man, let's go and watch this. He's like, yeah, cool, vampire movie. We went and saw it in the cinema and we walked out, we're like, was that a vampire movie? I mean, they don't really have fangs and all that. So then I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to watch the rest of the movies. I did watch the rest of the movies and I didn't really like them, but I love the books. Absolutely love I actually think I have a hard copy of them somewhere in storage. Um, I think that she is a really, really good writer. I
Me too.
think that definitely agree with you. The books are a lot better than the movies. I've only watched the movies once, and I don't intend to rewatch them, but I definitely will reread the books. I think I've read them about 3 times already since they came out. So,
I actually
yeah.
like her book so much that I have a signed copy.
Wow,
Oh
very
my.
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Um, Hold on. Yep.
Oh,
Wow. Oh, and
wow.
framed.
And
Yeah.
framed.
Yeah.
Nice,
Yep.
nice.
Yep. But my husband got that for me um a couple years ago. Yeah,
Wow.
he got that for me a couple years ago. Well, it was kind of like that inspiration. Like I told you, I like a secret society hidden within a
Hmm.
world. And so you walk down a street, you know, are they human or are they Theron? And then what
Yeah.
are the Therans? You know, are they vampire? Are they wolf? I don't get into the gore, the guts.
Yeah.
Like I've said, I get into the mystery. I love Agatha Christie. There I go, transposing. But anyhow, I I just there's something to be said about worlds that are making up a fictitious world
Hmm.
and using the current society or
Yeah.
current history and morphing it into something else. I mean, book 3, hands down, is unbelievable in what I did with it. And book 1 looks innocent, high school girl, powers, totally different powers than what you would ever think um, in a book. And I'll give you a clue. If you ever look up the word dyad and see how that you have
Oh.
a counterpart, and then how you use that with an instrument of prophecy and lead that through 3 books, with the last one ending at about 700 pages, you sit back and you wonder what's going on. And anything um I got to, as a rec therapist, I worked on in geriatric psych. So I got to understand there's such, even if you are a villain, you've committed murder, there's a good aspect to somebody, the psyche. And I know some people are like, are you serious? But yeah, there is. Your villain has to have a good side to make them more real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Their cause has to have depth to it. And so a lot of my background as a therapist kind of went into the making of these stories. And that's one reason why it took so long. Not only that, but because I took care of my family and
Yeah,
stuff first. But yeah, you know, so
awesome.
Cool, cool. Well, my turn, yeah, right? I forget what we're
Yep.
up to. Yeah, okay, three to go. Three to go. Okay, so what's a book that is not on the best-selling list but should be, or equally, what's an underrated book?
I can't give you, honestly, I can't give you a name of a book that is an underrated book because I read the blurb. I could tell you a book I don't like, but it's my perception.
Hmm.
A lot of books might get rave reviews, and I would not give it a rave review, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not underrated. You know what I mean? Because it could be a popular book.
Hmm.
Some people don't like um uh what's her name? Stephanie Myers. They would
Yeah,
rate it as a book that sucks.
yeah.
I would not, but I don't know I would want to answer that one.
There you go.
I, yeah, honestly, I'm genuinely honestly, I want to lift somebody up and
Yeah.
you know, I could tell you what I don't like in a book and why it would be an underrated book if you don't close off your main motive. You can leave people on a cliffhanger, but if you don't close off your main motive
Yeah.
in a book, that that is one of the deterrents that would just be like,
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep, I can get that. Okay, if you could combine the works of two different authors, who would you choose?
boy, you guys are out there on the edge with
Yeah.
questions that are undeniably wonderful. Um, Repeat the question one more time. If there were two books that I could mash together, right?
Yeah. Or
So
just
the works of two different authors. So, like, for example, for me, if I could combine two works of two different authors, it will probably be Martin Kearns and Stephen King, because I think that that would be a good mash of fantasy horror. See, Martin Kearns writes fantasy and it's a little bit of horror, but Stephen King is obviously all about the horror. So I'd like to see them mashed together.
Okay, so I go back to Allison Goodman, the
Mhm.
Sarah, the Jane Austen, and Sarah Moss.
Mm.
Okay.
So I, I like again, I like that history in that Regency or that era of stuff then. But those two authors, and yet the female protagonist that is definitely strong-willed and knows who she is and stuff like that, in putting those two types of authors' stories together in books. I would definitely say that.
Okay.
Cool.
How about you, Jamie?
Oh, see, I'd want to do something weird, like what's his name? Well, let's just because he's in my brain because Ryan just said it. Let's say Stephen King, and then I'd match it with like a kid's book, like Where's the Green Sheep or something. I'd want to be out there, just create something
And
weird.
Winnie the Pooh and Blood and Honey isn't out there.
No, no, no.
Exactly. I was
Oh,
about to say that.
Yeah.
so I just took the words right out of your mouth, right, Ryan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I'd want to mash together things that are just so different and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
I still think though that even though it's not wildly bizarre, um, I can't pick two author. I mean, I picked those two authors, but if you were to put legend against legend,
Mm.
and you're familiar with
Yeah.
legends, I would put Hercules and Medusa.
Mm. That'd be cool.
Those are two of my favorite.
Would it be Kevin
So
Sorbo Hercules?
Yeah.
I did watch them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Um,
I was raised on legends, as watching all those kinds of shows and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. They're very, very popular. He got robbed because Hercules gave birth to the New Zealand film industry because everyone that worked on Hercules went on to Lord of the Rings. And
Oh, okay.
and then um Kevin Sorbo was like, "Hey, Peter Jackson, yeah, I can play an orc. Like, where's my role? You know?"
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a good actor too.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing now.
He's all doing indie stuff now, like independent films, and
Okay.
because he kind of got shunned from Hollywood, because he got a little too political for them,
Ah,
and even his agents wouldn't work with him anymore. But now apparently he's working just like he's flat out. He's just doing the independent film stuff.
yeah, there's a huge market for independent films right now.
Yep. Yep.
Huge market.
Yep. And in a lot of way, they're just as good as indie books are.
I
We have a good friend. We give him shout outs all the time. Matthew Holmes is an independent filmmaker. He's struggled his whole life. He's made so much sacrifices, and he's won all these awards, but he's not. No one's paying attention to him. You know, and he does
hmm
brilliant films, absolutely brilliant
hmm
films.
Well, hey,
Yeah,
you know, he's at least got a drive, a passion for
yeah,
something that makes him happy.
yeah. That's it. All right, the final question.
Okay, drum roll.
The final question.
I think Ryan froze.
No, he's just very passionate.
No, I'm good. I'm just listening.
He's listening. Um, You're head of the education department for one day. What book do you put in the school curriculum?
Oh, you really want to ask me that question?
Yes, we do.
Oh, oh. Well, I know what I should say, and I do believe it. I do believe that we should be studying religions, not necessarily just the Bible. I think we could study different religions and stuff like that out of respect to understand different cultures, different ways of life,
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
they were
that.
big. Like at least back when I was in school, some of the schools were doing like studying all the religions. You know,
Some of them
like
did.
20 years
Yes.
ago, 30 years ago.
Yes. Well,
When I
I
was in
think I
school.
think kids get more well-rounded.
Yeah.
It's like studying, and I'm not comparing the Bible to history. I mean, in some essence it is, but the more we understand about history,
Yeah.
the more well-rounded kids are.
Yeah.
The more they can critically think, the better kids are, you know? And the more kids can understand other people and respect other people's cultures,
Yeah.
the better our
Yeah.
civilization is, you know? And there's lots that I don't know. Um, I mean, my door's been open because of helping Peter on P English literature. He's opened a new door to an understanding of culture I never
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
And yet I have respect for it, and he has respect for my way of thinking. And it's because of that, I think
Yeah.
that we will be more patient with people that don't think like us. We
Yeah.
don't have to come quick to anger.
Yeah.
We should take the time to think, the time to get to know
Yeah.
people, and so forth. But that would probably be my
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah. 100%. Even back when I was in school, there's this controversial figure in Australian history called Ned Kelly, and you got people that love him, you got people that hate him, and we in primary school, half the class had to defend him, and the other half had to, say he's bad, and it was just a really good discussion, really good way how to think of different perspectives, and there are
Mhm.
different sides to everything, and I think that's something we've lost.
I think we should teach our kids that it's okay to talk about tough
Yeah.
issues. I mean, we've done it with our children. It's okay to have tough issues. It's okay to walk away from a
Yeah.
discussion and
Yeah.
not have a winner,
Yeah.
you know, but there doesn't need to be animosity. There doesn't need to be some of the upset that happens. People's space, their zone, their thoughts should be treasured and respected. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Well, that seems like the perfect wrap up to a wonderful conversation. So
Okay.
thank you for joining us.
Yes. I thank you for allowing me to come and be a part of your podcast and everything.
Yeah. Well, it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely wonderful, guys. So check out all Cyndi's stuff. All the notes will be down in the show notes. All the links will be down in the show notes. She's not going to write notes for us, but and yeah, be sure to check her out. Check out our series. If you want to come on, guys, we've got a massive long line, but still feel free to reach out to thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com, and we'll all catch you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you, Jamie Ryan. I appreciate your kindness.